Good evening. Greetings and salutations. Welcome to the October 28th Legal Contracts and Board Policy Committee meeting. It is 5:34. In attendance, the board members we have today are co-chair member Sykes and chair, I am member Molnar. And the first item of business is the previous meeting minutes summary. And so in our packets, it is the first stapled document from our last meeting, which was September 16th. Are there any comments or discussion from the previous meeting minutes?
No, Madam Chair, I move for approval.
All right, thank you. And the next item on the agenda is public participation. It does not look like anybody has signed up. So moving on to section 3 would be readings that are in a first read, but we don't presently have any policies in a first read. So now we are moving right along to section 4 roundtable. The first item we have in roundtable is Senate Bill 29. So Attorney Kepchar, if you could please give us the updates on SB 29.
Thank you, Dr. Molnar. This is a comprehensive law on data tracking for students with parent notices and contract requirements. There are revisions that will be made to 5136.01 electronic equipment and policy 6460 vendor relations, and those were included in the October 2024 Neola update, which was just received last week. So the district will be in review of those updates.
Thank you. And so should we anticipate keeping Senate Bill 29 in our roundtable or or do you recommend that we move, for our discussion, should we move policy to, instead of Senate Bill 29, specifically to policy 5780 and policy 6460?
Madam Chair, I would recommend that we move.
Okay. So for roundtable for our next meeting, we can have policy 5780 and policy 6460. Another thing that I want to note, or I kept in my notes, is in our last discussion, there was a question about 90 days versus 30 to 45 days. It looks like the recommendation before was 90 days. So if we could kind of keep that in mind when we have the discussion as it relates to our specific policies, I think that would be helpful. And then I also had in my notes templates for parent notification letters. And so if we could have some examples of those, I think that would also be helpful. Is there any other discussion on section 4.1, Senate Bill 29?
Nothing for me.
All right, so we can move on now to House Bill 214.
Thank you. This is a law that has to do with religious exemption. There are revisions to policy 5200 attendance that were included in the Neola update. Again, this was a part of the update that was just received last week, so the district will be in review and update that policy accordingly.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Which policy number would that be for?
That would be 5200 attendance.
Okay, so in discussion for the next meeting, we will rename House Bill 214 to policy 5200 attendance. Okay, any other discussion left on House Bill 214? All right, moving on. Section 4.03, update from administration, new policies for vendors and independent contractors. Is there an update?
So after looking at the current policy, the district feels as though, well, the administration feels as though there's nothing that needs to be changed with the vendor independent contract policy that we think it's pretty solid where it is right now.
And what is the policy number of that policy?
Let me pull it up for you.
It is policy 6460.
Oh, yeah, 6460, which we actually are going to be updating along with the Senate Bill 29. Senate Bill 29 is going to be intertwined throughout several different policies, and one of the policies that it is going to affect is this vendor contract policy, but it's not going to, we won't have the actual draft completed until our next meeting, which is in January, due to the Neola just sending in what we need to do on the 21st. So we're in the process now of merging policies based on the guidance from Neola and how Senate Bill 29 is affecting some of our policies. And so we will have an updated draft, but the current policy we have in place, we don't see changing any of the language at the top, which deals with vendor contracts and independent contracts, except for a couple of grammatical kind of linguistic changes. And then the majority of the changes are going to be impacted by some technology language because of SB 29.
Okay, so I do see that we will be updating this same policy, 6460, but the updates that I see in the Neola as they relate to this does not really specifically address the concerns that brought this to committee, which is the gray area involving our independent contractors. And we have several types of independent contractors and the nature of the relationship with them. So for that reason, and if there are no other recommendations coming from administration, I do have some things I can share with the committee and with administration from the Ohio Department of Job and Family Services as one reference. There also U.S. Department of Labor as another reference. And then also, just like we have the Ohio Revised Code, there's also the OAC, which has, sample policies and information. And so when I was looking to see what our policy is or what our policy might be or what other policies that other people might have, the first school that I looked at their policy was Harvard's, because I figured they've got a pretty good law department. Clearly, there are a lot of differences between us and Harvard, but the most important difference between us is that they're in Maryland and we're in Ohio. So there are a lot of Maryland-specific things in the Harvard policy that aren't going to ever, unless something changes in the state of Ohio, apply to us. Interestingly, it looks like the OAC policy, they use Bowling Green's policy as their sample policy. But there is a lot of information in here, like an ABC test or other tests that are related to independent contractors that I don't see at all in our policies. And I think are important for us to discuss. So as a committee, how would we like to proceed with receiving the information that I so far have kept, I have recently found? How would you like me to share this for us to consider?
Well, Madam Chair, I have not seen the information, so you can just, if you want to just forward it to me, and then I'll take a look at it and read it. And now you say Harvard, so you mean Massachusetts, not Maryland?
Oh, that's what I meant.
Massachusetts, yes, okay. So you can just forward it to me if you like. And I don't know, could you refresh my memory? What was it about the independent contractors? What was the concerns? How did it what is the difference? What is it that's missing that you want us to address?
Thank you. Yes. The primary issue that started the conversation here is the distinction between an independent contractor and an employee. And within the distinction between those two roles, then from there are a lot of behaviors and reactions and other things that apply based upon that, what defines what our independent contractors are.
Okay. Well, I'll be happy to take a look at what you think may be recommendations for the committee.
Okay, I will do that. I will share that. And from that, is there any other discussion on potential new policies for vendors and independent contractors?
No, Madam Chair, I have nothing.
All right, so we will leave this in roundtable for
Okay.
our next meeting.
Okay, no. Okay.
Okay, next we have item 4, recess policies.
Item 4, recess policy. We did put our current policy in the packet, if you want to view that, but after reviewing it and reading through it, we're happy with our policy as it states. Our students would have opportunities for a break for wellness and physical activities throughout the day. One time for this is daily recess, and activities for movement and 5-minute exercise intervals are encouraged to be a part of elementary school day schedule. And so right now we have a minimum of a 20-minute lunch. And we have found that the majority of our buildings are having 30-minute lunches with a 15-minute recess, which meets the policy.
Thank you for this. Thank you for finding this policy for us and explaining this. Before I go, are there any comments?
No, Madam Chair.
All right. I appreciate that we have all this about recess. Once again, the reason why I brought recess up is because of the pedagogical benefits of recess and how much recess contributes to learning, especially how critical it is to afternoon learning. And so with that, I would like to recommend that we keep everything that's here. I agree. What we have here is really nice. But we have here in 6, schools are discouraged from using daily recess as punishment. You know, we discourage denying the opportunity for physical activity, but I would like to go one step further and recognize the benefits of research. So my recommendation is that we would create number 8 here and say, recognized for its educational benefits, recess is a pedagogical activity and pivotal component of core instruction. So this should not affect the times that schools are already having. This should not affect who is currently monitoring recess. It is just recognizing recess as a component of learning.
Okay, so I guess my question would be, how would that affect number 6, where it says schools are discouraged from using the daily recess period as punishment, denying the student opportunity for physical activity?
I would say it would keep it the same. They would continue to be discouraged, and they would deny the student opportunity for physical activity. If we wanted to add an additional statement there, you know, denying the student physical activity could impact future learning. Because that is what the research says about recess. Also, it isn't just the learning, it's social, emotional, and physical development that occurs within recess. So it isn't just denying the student physical activity, it's denying them social and emotional development. So if we wanted to add statements to 6, we could.
Okay.
But I would still, even if we did that, I would still want 8 to recognize recess as a pedagogical activity and component of core instruction.
Okay. And so that is something we can work on and just bring that back in January at our next meeting.
All right, and so when we bring it back in the next meeting, should we bring it back to roundtable or a first read?
Well, it's just going to be that simple statement, right? So I think we can move it along. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that would be first read.
First read. I'm going to put that in my notes also. We are moving right along. So I have first read, policy 8,000 operations. And I can text you the statement or email you the statement too. So it'll be easier. Yeah. Okay. We are now down to the last item here in roundtables, section or subject 405, volunteer policy.
Okay, and that really should say visitor policy. Okay. And then for the visitor policy, the only reason why we wanted to bring this up for discussion is because we just recently sent a letter out to families regarding our Raptor system, which will be the avenue in which we sign people in and out of our buildings, where people are used to either the paper where they come in and they sign in as a visitor, or some buildings are just using a Google Chrome, a Google document on Chromebooks for people to sign in. But with the Raptor system, it will, you have to use a valid ID, either a driver's license or state ID, and sign in with that. And then the information that it collects will allow the building administrators to know who's in their building at what time. And so we just wanted to make note to the community and as a part of this discussion that the Raptor system is not going to affect our policy, that our policy still remains the same, but the Raptor system is the way that we will be monitoring people coming in and out of our school buildings. And then we do want to continue to just keep bringing this up because this is something that's going to be different for our community. But what we need them to understand that this is a policy, and as part of our visitors, as part of the visitor system, the visitors policy, the avenue that we're using or the mode of tracking our visitors is through the Raptor system. And so those particular protocols will be outlined in our administrative guidelines. And so just making sure that people understand that it is a policy for us to know who's in our building at all times. And that we're just making sure that not only employees, but our community members, everyone complies with the new process that will be in place, which is guided by our policy. And again, the protocol is going to actually be in the administrative guidelines.
Madam Chair, so now when is this effective?
The Raptor system will roll out in January. So we're doing trainings November and December, with rolling it out throughout the district in January.
Madam Chair, so the individual would need to show a state driver's license or a state ID.
Correct.
And at what age would the individual need to show the state ID?
So that's a good question, Mrs. Sykes. And so that is something, I'm glad you asked that. At what age?
Because as you're writing it down, let me just say, Madam Chair, is that, we are dealing with individuals that may not have a driver's license and may not have a state ID, but yet have a reason to be in the school in order to check on their child or to participate in a program and an activity that's going on. And so we could find ourselves requiring something that our families just do not have.
Absolutely. We do have, there's a way for us to manually input that information, and as part of the guidelines is if you don't have that, then you would be asked to meet with the building administrator for he or she to input your information. So there is still a way to make sure that you're in the system, that you're signing in the Raptor system without having an ID.
Madam Chair, so So when I asked what age, so did you not discuss that, or you just, what age would an individual need to show an ID in order to enter?
Right. I don't remember that as part of being a discussion or our user manual, but that's something I'm definitely going to take back to Mr. Jones to say, how do we address this question that was brought up in our committee meeting?
Yeah, Madam Chair, I would just say that because, as you know, when families come in, they bring families.
Correct.
And so the question would be if the grown-up has an ID, or another person, like say the grandparent is with them and they don't have an ID, what are we going to do about that? Yeah. And again, how old would the individual have to be in order to show an ID in the first place?
Okay.
Yeah.
I also have additional questions and concerns related to this, including from what time does this apply? Because our buildings are used throughout the day for lots of purposes, and so are we using this all day long? I'm also concerned about not just people who don't have an ID, but knowing that our buildings are open to the community. Some of our buildings are open to the community all day long, even if they don't have students in the building. We have our family resource centers. So what if someone is coming, a community member is coming to the Family Resource Center because they want to get an ID or they need information? And so how are those scenarios going to be handled? I'm really surprised that that all of this can be handled just in administrative guidelines without any changes to our current policy, especially because, I mean, I don't know if it would be helpful for us to see your draft of the administrative guidelines so we can see that it does not conflict with the policy.
Okay.
Madam Chair, may I just ask our Chief of Staff, why are we doing this? What have you found?
For Raptor? I think it's just another added layer to help with supporting our staff and students, to making sure that everyone has a sense of safety and security within our buildings. And it's a way to make sure that we have an automated system to track visitors.
Madam Chair, Madam Chief of Staff, I agree with you as far as safety is concerned. But also, it is our schools and our community learning center and our communities and our taxpayers, and we want them to feel welcome.
Absolutely.
So I'm wondering how would this make one feel if they have to provide this type of information? And that's the first question. Second question is I want to know, how are we going about informing the public that this is what you would like to do starting the first of the year?
So we have a communication plan lined up. So right now we've notified parents. We're going to also do a release to the community regarding the Raptors visitor management system. We'll be sending another letter home in December. And then you had asked about, you had said something else that had triggered a thought for me that I wanted to make sure I answered. The Raptor system flags, it will not pick up anything as it relates to if you have any type of criminal record other than if it is a sex offender flag.
My question was, hopefully that just triggers it. It was, how do we make the community feel welcome?
Yes.
That's my concern.
Absolutely.
Feeling welcome into
I think
the
part of the
schools.
communication, I'm not trying to intrude. Part of the communication is making sure that our families and our parents know that this is not going to stop you. Even if you do have a flag, it's not going to stop you for participating in your students' activities. You'll still be permitted to come to open house. You'll still be permitted to come to family nights. There's certain things that you may not be permitted to do if you have a sex offense on your record, but it's not going to cut you out of being a part of your child's education and the things that are related to parent involvement and parent engagement.
I am also curious, you gave, a scenario of a person who may or may not be identified with having a sex offender and not being able, or not being denied part of their child's experience. But we have a lot of people who are coming to our buildings, and I'm curious how it would be handled for people who are not there for their child's experience. We have voting during the school day, for instance, and a lot of other events that happen during the school day. And so in our administrative guidelines, I'm guessing, is where it will be described how, if this system triggers something about somebody, who does what next?
Thank you. These are things that we need to make sure that we bring up as it relates to, and then maybe the committee needs to look at some of the things as it relates to if it's going to be in policy or as you bring up these questions. So I appreciate that, because this is something that we would want to either address. And when you're talking about the voting and things like that, because it's not a school function, maybe that is a piece that we may need to address in this. So I do need to take this back to our policy committee and break this down a little more as it relates to the questions that are coming up today.
Yeah, Madam Chair, let me just say, I echo what you said. So we have a family member that's coming in for a program, and then if they have a felon, will that be? Is it just felons that deal with sexual issues, or all felons? And if so, what level of felon, first, second? And then as Dr. Molinar asked, and then that may be a person that we want to leave the school, and who would do that? Would that be the staff responsibility? Would that be the security responsibility? And how we're going to deal with that, because I think that a person would be quite angry, especially if we're dealing with an individual who has served their time, paid their dues, but yet this will still be on their record, and they're not able to come in to see their child performance. And again, I'm just not sure, why are we doing this? I still didn't. You said, could you explain a little bit more? Raptors, are you calling this? Could you explain that? I don't. What does that stand for? Is that? Is this a recommendation that we received from someone? Is other schools doing this?
Yes, there are other schools that have. There are other schools that have the Raptor system in place.
And could you spell that for me? I don't quite know what you're saying. Raptor?
Raptor, it's RAPTOR. It's not an acronym.
Okay.
It's
what
just
is it?
Raptor.
That's what I'm trying to
Okay, yeah. So the Raptor Visitor Safe is designed to enhance the safety of our schools by requiring all visitors to present a state or federal ID. The system will quickly scan the ID and cross-reference the visitor's information with the national database of registered sex offenders. If a match is found, school administrators will be notified. If no match is detected, the system will generate a visitor badge that includes the visitor's name, photo, purpose of the visit, and the time and date of their visit. That's
okay. And then, Madam Chairman, I just said, what is the cost of this system?
I don't have the costs with me here, but I'll email that to you.
Yeah. And
because there is a substantial.
I'm sure there is a cost. I'm absolutely sure there is.
Because we have to pay for the technology.
I'm sure there is a significant cost to this. And that's not a word.
But I feel like I'm channeling the woo here, because there is a substantial cost to this. Yeah. And I believe that we have already, as a board, at a regular meeting, approved this. So is that contract already going? When you find out what the cost is, could you please let us know how long the contract is for? Where are we within that contract of what we've already approved?
And just, Madam Chair, so this would be, is this a pilot program, or are we rolling this out to all schools?
It would be rolled out to, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I thought you were asking me.
We are.
Oh, you're asking me?
Yeah.
Okay. So it is going to be rolled out to all schools.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So it sounds to me like there's a lot more information to learn about this. So I'm going to propose we leave this item in discussion in roundtable. Okay. Are there any other questions or things that we want to add while they're on our mind to keep before we close this section?
Oh, I was just going to say, I pulled up the board rec. It was approved in February, and it says that the total cost is $117,377, and that's for a 36-month subscription term.
And have those 36 months started already? Since that was in February, it is nearly November now. Have those 36 months started?
I'll need to see, I'll have to find out look on the specific contract when it starts. I do know that we have installed all the systems in the building, and we're doing the training this month. So everything's been installed, and so the training will take place this month and December, with rolling things out in January.
Madam Chair, I would just say that with this type of system, so it would probably have to continuously be updated.
Correct.
And so can we expect a new contract or an additional contract for updating of the program?
Yes, I'll check on the software updates, and there's also a cost with the visitor stickers that are printed, and so that's also a cost for replacement.
Okay. And how long is the contract that we approved in February? Did you say 36 months?
Yes. 36 months.
And does that 36 months contract start in January, or did it start in February when we passed this?
Annually with the Raptor technology effective. I'll need to find out when the actual, when do our time starts for the
Right.
36 months.
Right. Right. Madam Chair, as back in February, which seems like 20 years ago to me, first of all, if there was some discussion about it, I really don't remember. But I just want us to make sure that we pay particular attention to this, because I think that it could make our families not feel welcome into the buildings, that it may be just one more thing.
Yes.
Just one more thing that's causing them to be questioned, and all they want to do is just simply come in and see their child performance. Come in for the Thanksgiving or Christmas program. And whilst their security and safety is most important to us, our students, but we want our families to feel welcome. Additionally, Madam Chair, may I ask if we could get something as to how this is working in other school systems? Do we have some idea about this?
Thank you. I agree that that's all critical, and the only thing I would even add to that is it's not just families, because this would be for anyone who's entering our buildings.
Yeah.
If there's anything I've heard from the community during talking about the levy and things like that, we're trying to welcome other community members, not just families, into our buildings. And so this is, like you said, it's another layer, it's another barrier, it's another reason not to, watch the play or the performance or in some cases receive services. Our family resource centers offer services and that people need. That's why they're there.
Madam Chair, let me just correct. When I say family, I consider we all a family. It's just one big happy family. So whether we're talking a vendor, or whether we're talking a blood family, or whether we're talking neighbors, or what we all, I mean the family of the Akron, of city of Akron, and all of those people that could find themselves wanting to visit our school. We just want them to feel welcome. And hopefully this process is not invasive into our families visiting our school. And it's just, and that question, Madam Chair, really, if we find that an individual, we want that individual to leave our school, how is that going to be handled?
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other discussion on the school visitor policy 9150?
Oh, I was just going to say, you had noted, like, how are our parents going to feel about that? So that is one thing that we do want to monitor. And so as a part of the plan with implementing this, we are going to be looking at the comfort level with using the system as relates to staff that has to interact with this on a daily basis. Also looking at parents' satisfaction and understanding of the Raptor system. So just making sure that we have survey for stakeholders, and then also looking at the ease of the visitor check-in process. And so we do want to make sure that this is something that is going to help with enhancing our safety and not providing any kind of hindrance on our progress as it relates to working with our community and our families and the safety of our scholars and staff.
Madam Chair, let me just mention this. Actually, if we were looking at, I know it's difficult to proceed with the policy if the board has not approved purchasing the software that will cause us to have this system, but it just seems that we should have received this soon after, or in conversation with preparing to have this particular process. This is a major, major new process that we will be entering into and welcoming individuals into our system. And so this is, what month are we in? October. And we passed this in February. And so I really would have liked, it seems like we're way down the road with this, and now we're looking at the policy and getting our attention on this, because I think this type of information we should have had in order to have an adequate discussion before we looked at agreeing to this particular program coming into our schools. And I'm not blaming anyone. Just as we go through this, if we can figure out how to do these things in the order that I think would be more advantageous for the board, and understanding exactly what the administration is recommending. And so again, committee meetings are a great place to have these discussions, and this is exactly where it should be. The only thing is that we've already approved the software. So it's so I just would like us to, as we go forward, Madam Chief of Staff, if you would just mention to the superintendent that these types of things, that it would be nice to kind of pull our coattails to say, this is something that we're doing, that we will probably have to come in and look at bringing in some new technology that will require new policies, and kind of see if we can coordinate that to have the policy and the technology at the same time, or closer than February and October.
And I will second everything that you just said, that it would have been nice to have this information sooner, and moving forward, if we're going to do something, to get the information sooner. And I am going to add to that also, I'm a little concerned that you said that information is already going out to families. And so information has been released to families, and we are here still trying to decide what some of the rules will be. So I don't know what we are communicating to families yet, but I think that we could, in the future, strive to be possibly more efficient with this, especially if the contract started in February. All right. Yes, thank you. Moving on now, Section 5, unfinished business. We have no unfinished business. So Section 6, new business. We have our Neola October updates. So Attorney Capichar, please.
Thank you, Dr. Molnar. So there are 3 attachments included in the agenda from Neola. The first one, let's see, let's just go in order here. Actually, I'm going to take the shorter ones first, and then we'll go to the other ones. So if you can start by taking a look at the where it says book at the top. Ohio Local Policies for Update, Section Volume 43, Number 1, UGG, Edgar revisions. So this is an release from Neola that discusses how the Office of Management and Budget released some uniform guidelines with regard to Title II of the Code of Federal Regulations. This guidance is for the purpose of explaining the regulations in Title II that incorporate statutory requirements and administration priorities, reducing agency and recipient burden, clarifies sections that recipients or agencies have interpreted in different ways in the past, and also rewriting applicable sections in plain language, improving flow, et cetera. And then also included in bold on the back of this is the policies that were updated based off of this update with regard to the uniform grant guidance.
Thank you. And so of these, it looks like about a dozen policies. Are there updates that we will need to review in our district?
Yeah, the district will review the policies that we have along with these, I'm sure, to make sure that we're that we're conforming with the uniform guidance that was placed. I'm not sure in what order we'll go in those, because as we'll see in the larger update, there's quite a few to go through, but I think that we'll come up with a way to do this in the most effective manner. Any other questions as to that handout? There's this one, and then there's also a Senate Bill 29 smaller handout. And this is a special release from Neola that was published as a addition to a legal alert that was provided. So this just provides a bit more insight as to Senate Bill 29's changes as far as certain statutes go. But really, while it gives some background to Senate Bill 29, it doesn't have really too much as far as policy changes or guidance go. That's going to be found more so in this large packet that we have, which there are a couple of new policies and a lot of revisions, as well as policies that are being consolidated. So I know that Heidi has already began to work on those policies that are being consolidated and making changes to those. And the district has also began taking a look, as we said before, at some of our policies that are affected by Senate Bill 29, such as 6460 and 5136.01, which is electronic equipment. So Dr. Molinar had discussed that as opposed to going through every single one of these and reading them out loud, which would be quite long-winded and really not fun to listen to, that we could discuss how the district would like to plan to get these implemented. And I believe that internally what we'll continue to do is hold smaller meetings where we'll take a look at the current policy in comparison to the Neola updates and make those changes with the district's preferences in mind, and then bringing them to the committee. Mr. Jeffbaugh, do you have anything to add as far as that?
No, I'd just state that we have an internal procedure committee made up of 4 or 5 of us. And what we do is we go through, one, assess whether it's mandatory, first and foremost. There are a few that are mandatory, and we have to adopt those. And then we look at the other discretionary and determine where they're at, how does it fit in the district, and then bring those to you as well. So we typically meet every 3 weeks, but I think based on the length, the timing of when we were supposed to receive these in August and received them last week, so we're going to be meeting weekly, probably with Diana Feidel as well, sits on those meetings and try to get these all ready for January. There may be a few I do want to point out that we may have to bring to the full board based on the nature of the subject matter. So we're not there yet, but we'll fully apprise the board members of that.
Madam Chair, I would just ask, could you give us an example of one, please?
Of what we
That you may have to
bring.
bring to the board? That I'm assuming these will be the mandatory ones.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll have to look at the mandatory and break down the mandatory. One issue that we may want to bring before January is, for example, the religious days. You know,
Okay.
the bill where the state came out late. So we may have to bring a couple. I don't want to bank on it, but there are definitely some issues with the religious school days off that we may want to get in before January when it goes into effect. As Attorney Feidel indicated, there's some questions on the timing of it.
Well, you're looking at that.
Sorry.
I know that we don't get these every month. How often do we get these updates? Because we have about 4 dozen. Twice a year? Okay. Just so I've kind of a window of how much time we have to go through 48.
So,
Yeah.
so looking at most of these recommended, we get down to student transfers. Policy 5131 is mandatory.
Okay.
That'll be one we assess, as well as 5136, which is identified as personal, is a mandatory. We also have attendance is mandatory. So there may be a handful that we will communicate if we want to bring that to the board and maybe request waiver of readings, but you'll be fully apprised.
Madam Chair, I'm asking because I remember a discussion that we had a few months ago about the length of time that it was taking the committee to move on these items. And Madam Chair, you had mentioned that we really did not have those on our agenda. And so that's why I'm asking if in fact those are items that we need to make sure that we act on those as quickly as possible. Then I would just ask the administration to make sure that you bring those to the committee so that we can use our policies and procedures that we've established so that we can also do this in a timely manner.
Certainly, and I appreciate that, Member Sykes.
Yeah. Because, we do want to move these items along, but at the same time, we want to make sure that we are making sure that we are using our policies and procedures that this committee has established to do that.
Thank you. And with that, I do see there are about, on these 2 pages, about 48 here.
Yes.
And it does not sound like at this point there are any specific recommendations on them. So as a committee for now, should we leave this in unfinished business?
At the very least. So, Madam Chair, are you saying that you think that what you do internally, you will not be able to review these and bring those to this committee before January?
I don't want to commit to that, Member Sykes. What we're going to do is look and review first and foremost the mandatory.
Oh, yes.
Those that are required. And I just want to be nimble enough to determine, since we just received these last week, that we may have to bring a couple of policies, I guess, to the committee. So we have no committee meetings in November, December, correct?
Not yet.
Gotcha.
But we could.
Okay, that's perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, I would, yeah, Madam Chair, I would make myself available if, that's what I'm saying, if the administration feel that we need to act upon these quicker, then yes, I would make myself available so that you can bring those to the committee.
Perfect.
Yes,
Thank you very much.
absolutely.
All right, thank you. Is there anything else on the Neola updates? Okay, I have a few things I wanted to talk about in new business, but I will skip around because one of the things I actually wanted to bring up was a potential need for a November or December meeting. Generally, this meeting follows the Finance Committee meeting. And I do know that it looks like there was a Finance Committee meeting scheduled on December 2nd. So,
No, I don't think it's,
or no, not December 2nd.
it's not December 2nd, but it's sometime in December. I can't remember right now.
So with the information we have so far, should we schedule a committee meeting to immediately follow the Finance Committee meeting?
The 19th, yes.
19th? Okay,
Yes,
yes.
that would be
Okay.
great.
So let's plan to, at minimum, meet December 19th after the Finance Committee
Okay.
meeting. All right, yes.
Oh, member sites, it says the finance meeting is at 5:30,
4:30.
4:30, okay.
Mhm.
So I'm gonna,
Yeah, I noticed for some reason the treasurer's office keeps wanting to say 5:30, but it's 4:30, and I will not change this time. As I acknowledged last time, okay, we will because the notices has gone out, but the meeting is 4:30. The Finance Committee meetings will always meet at 4:30. Yes. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you. So then we will be 5:30 or immediately after the
Right.
Finance Committee meeting.
Yeah. Thank you.
So, thanks.
Yeah.
Is there any other new business being brought?
Madam Chair, I have no new business. I would just ask that when we meet and you report out on what happened here, I just would ask if you would give just a little extra time to explaining to our members why we think that the school visitors issue is one that we want to bring particular attention to their attention. And perhaps the 19th, we will have more information on this, but just if you would just kind of bring this to all of our members' attention, that we all want to pay attention to what's happening with this issue, school visitors.
Thank you. Yes, we can do that. And because we do have 4 minutes left, I do have two other potential items to see if perhaps we would want to add them to our roundtable section or somewhere else for our next committee meeting. The first thing I want to bring up is our dress code policy. At the beginning of the school year this year, there's a lot of conversation about the suspension of the dress code policy, and at that time, administration said that they would have a draft of our dress code policy in the winter. If we are meeting in December, I know that's a time when a lot of families do a lot of clothes shopping. And so knowing even what the August dress code might be could really impact people's decisions in December. And so if we could have an update at minimum on the timeline for that policy, I would like that on December 19th. If that's
No objections.
all right. And then saving the best for last. I did see in the NAACP press release called for a review of the policies governing school discipline. I'm going to read the quote. Review of policies governing school discipline, a commitment to restorative practices, and a reimagining of what safety looks like in our schools. And I thought that was so well said that I reread it verbatim. And so as a committee, I don't know if we want to have a place or a timeline on how we'd want to discuss or handle any of these issues, but I wanted at least two. I know we're 2 minutes to leaving, but I did not want to have a whole meeting without at least bringing it up.
So are you, Madam Chair, are you suggesting that we have this on the agenda on the 19th, or what?
Yes, so a possibility would be having it in roundtable on the 19th of maybe because I know it's a very large and encompassing several different policies, probably all related, and contracts. So if we would look at what we would look at first, how we would look at things, or have a discussion at all, yes.
Did you want to start with first looking at what restorative practices we already have in place as it relates to buildings doing circles and restorative practice trainings and reset and restore kind of practices that we already have in place first, maybe?
Yeah,
Start.
that would be a good place to start,
Okay.
I would say.
And so I can work with Mrs. Culver and Dr. Lash and have them put something together or maybe even present on our restorative practices that we already have, restorative practices that we already have in place.
Okay.
Thank you. Yes, that is a great suggestion. Our restorative practices presentation.
Yes.
Okay, and with that, any other new business, any other items before we adjourn?
Nothing for me, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Well, then I will just review that at our December 19th meeting. We currently have no policies heading for a third or second reading. At our meeting on the 19th, we have one policy for a first reading, policy 8000 for operations, and then we have 4 policies for discussion in December, along with an update on dress code and our restorative practices presentation. Thank you. We are adjourned at 6:30 on the dot.
Thank you.